The morning sun slanted through the open doors of Hangar 6 at Falcon Ridge Air Base, casting long, clean streaks of light across the polished concrete. Crews moved in a rhythm sharpened by routine. Wrenches clinked, boots echoed, and the occasional joke bounced between junior mechanics gathered near the intake bay of a B-2 Spirit. Someone whistled low when the woman walked in. She wore a standard-issue green flight suit, no insignia, no name tag, nothing that said she belonged here. A visitor badge, clipped to her chest, was the only clue. She held a tablet in one hand and a small kit in the other. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her gait was calm, purposeful, but unhurried. Rogers. A tech, fresh out of Nellis. Nudged Chen. Is that the inspector? Chen looked over his shoulder. She looks more like someone who got lost on the way to HR. A couple of the others chuckled. Someone muttered something about desk jockeys who wouldn't know a hydraulic manifold from a circuit breaker. Another added, she probably flew a Cessna once and now thought she knew aircraft. Morgan Hayes ignored them. She walked past without so much as a glance, scanning the B-2's landing gear area. Her finger tapped a note into the tablet. She paused by a maintenance panel, bent slightly to inspect something, then moved on. Her eyes were calm and focused, but her face gave nothing away. A few looked toward her again, puzzled. Something about the way she moved didn't quite match the assumptions they'd made. She didn't stop to ask questions. She didn't fumble with her tablet or look unsure. She moved like someone who'd done this before, many times. Still, no one saw the patch. Not until Chief Alvarez entered from the flight line. The hangar noise didn't stop for him at first. He was an old hand, known but not feared. He nodded at familiar faces as he crossed toward the whiteboard, glancing at the duty roster. But halfway across the floor, he caught sight of her. His boots halted mid-step. For a moment, he stared, his head tilted slightly. Then he squared his shoulders. He stood straight, then sharper. He came to attention with crisp military precision, his right hand shooting up in a textbook salute. Fingers angled tight at his brow. The hangar fell silent. Tools lowered, heads turned. Even the clank of a dropped socket wrench echoed louder than expected. People followed Alvarez's gaze. They looked at the woman again. And now, finally, they saw it. Faded along her left sleeve, half covered by the fold of fabric, the tail feathers and stylized wing of a rarely seen insignia, the Spirit Talon. A patch awarded only to pilots who'd completed classified flight ops involving the B-2 Spirit. Missions even senior officers weren't cleared to read about. Rogers frowned. Chen blinked. Morgan didn't stop. She made one final note on her tablet, then glanced up at Alvarez, meeting his salute with a steady nod. No smile. No acknowledgement beyond that. Then she turned toward the main landing gear assembly, crouched down, and began checking the brake line sensors. Alvarez lowered his hand slowly. A few of the crew looked at each other. Nobody said anything out loud, but their expressions had changed. The jokes dried up. Even the new guys sensed something had just shifted. You didn't get that patch unless you had done things most people would never even read about. Someone finally whispered, barely audible, "Who the hell is she?" No one answered. Across the hangar, Chen found himself watching her again. This time, not with amusement, more like uncertainty. Maybe it was the way she didn't react to being underestimated. Maybe it was how she hadn't tried to prove herself or push back. She just went about her business like she had nothing to prove, like she'd already proved it. The noise of work slowly resumed, but it was different now. Quieter, more focused. People glanced over at her now, not because they doubted her, but because they were starting to wonder. Morgan moved to the avionics access panel, inspected the wiring harness, then straightened and made another note. Her expression hadn't changed. She didn't seem fazed by the shift in mood. Maybe she hadn't even noticed it. Or maybe she'd expected it all along. Chief Alvarez didn't move from his spot. He stood near the whiteboard, arms now folded, watching her. His eyes weren't just evaluating anymore. They were remembering, trying to place something, a memory just out of reach. Not just the patch, the posture, the precision, the way she held herself. And then it clicked. He looked away, but only for a second. Then back again. That was no systems auditor. The air inside the hangar had changed, like before a storm. Calm, but full of something no one could name yet. A question hung in the air, quiet and heavy. What kind of person wore that patch? But came back without a name. Whatever answer the crew expected to get that day, they were about to learn that sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest stories, and the ones who don't need to prove themselves often already did, in places no one else could reach, at altitudes no one else could survive, under silence and shadow. And today, that silence had just walked in through the side door. Morgan continued her inspection in silence. The mechanics had mostly gone back to their tasks, but she could feel their eyes. Some watched openly, some from behind tool carts, but it didn't change how she moved. She made notes on her tablet, paused here and there to crouch near a conduit or remove a panel cover, then pressed on with quiet focus. She wasn't looking for faults in the way a checklist would. She moved like someone who remembered the system from inside. Not from diagrams, but from long hours spent working around it, in flight, under pressure. The kind of familiarity that came from need, not instruction. At Bay 4, Chen worked with a torque wrench under the fuel distribution control node. He caught her watching and gave a glance back. "You need something?" he asked. Voice clipped. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted toward his calibration unit. She stepped in closer and pointed without touching. "You're getting inconsistent readings on the lower valve." Chen looked down. Readout was fluctuating between 3.1 and 3.7 psi. "That's normal warm-up," he said. "Not at this ambient." He frowned. Ambient was 68 degrees. He watched as she leaned closer, rotated the dial with 2 short turns, then nudged a pin inside the housing with the back end of a stylus. The numbers stabilized instantly, perfectly. Chen blinked. "What did you just do?" "Adjustment for sensor lag," she said. "Happens sometimes when the internal compensator doesn't reset cleanly after voltage cycling." "It's not in the checklist." Chen stared, then slowly nodded. "Right. Thanks." She was already gone. Staff Sergeant Morales had seen the whole thing. He didn't say anything, just raised one eyebrow slightly and followed her path across the hangar. Morgan moved with economy. No wasted steps, no motion that didn't have a reason behind it. At Station 3A, the team was running a routine boot on the Mark V communications module. Tech specialist Rivers leaned back in frustration. "Why does it keep freezing at config load?" he asked. "We replaced this unit last month and it's still failing the handshake." Morgan arrived behind him quietly. "Have you tried bypassing the secondary I/O router?" Rivers looked up. "You mean skip the 12B loop? That's not in the manual." "No," she said. "But it works." The Mark V series has a known fault if the previous shutdown was forced during runtime. Rivers didn't answer right away. He tried it. Hands moved across the console, and the screen flickered past the old error line. Boot complete. System stable. He looked up again, this time really seeing her. "You've seen this exact glitch before." "Multiple times," she replied. "You don't forget things that make comms fail mid-flight." Rivers exchanged a glance with Morales. The expression said it all. This wasn't guesswork. This wasn't theory. She knew. By now, people weren't pretending not to notice her. Rodriguez, the crew lead for avionics, walked across from the adjacent bay and stopped a few feet away. He didn't speak right away, just watched as she ran a diagnostic on the stabilizer interface controller. She worked fast, one hand flipping the cover switch, the other making inputs on her tablet. Everything about her actions felt precise. Rodriguez stepped forward. "How long you been working systems long enough?" she said. "That's not an answer. It's all you're getting." He gave a dry chuckle. "That's fair." Morgan turned to check the system pressure readings on the central console. She toggled between values faster than most could follow. The rest of the crew watched her quietly. This wasn't the pace of a civilian consultant. This was someone used to operating under time pressure, someone who knew exactly how these systems behaved under stress. What stood out wasn't just the knowledge, it was the lack of hesitation. Morales spoke up. "You ever serve the words hung there?" She didn't look up. "Still does," Alvarez said quietly from the side. A few heads turned. The chief hadn't spoken since the moment he'd saluted her earlier that morning. But now, his voice carried weight. She finished the check, entered something on her screen, then looked up at him. It was the first time she made direct eye contact since walking in. Alvarez nodded once. A silent exchange. The crew around them sensed something had passed. A confirmation, maybe. One that wasn't written on a badge or clipboard. Rivers looked down at the functioning Mark V console. Then at the woman who'd fixed it in 10 seconds without looking up from her tablet. He'd been through Air Force tech school, had seen plenty of field manuals. No one taught what she just did. Chen stepped forward, suddenly unsure. "Hey, earlier, about the calibration. How did you know it was the pressure lag?" She paused. "Because I've had it happen at 30,000 feet, and I didn't want it to happen to you." She walked away before he could respond. The rest of the hangar grew quiet again. Not in shame this time. In thought. They watched her continue down the row. Eyes scanning surfaces. Fingers sometimes pausing on seams or panels. Like she was remembering them. Not reading. She didn't act like she belonged there. She just did. It was subtle, but powerful. One by one. The crew stopped seeing her as the civilian they thought she was. Instead, they began seeing the shape of something else. Someone who'd walked these hangars before. Who'd sat in that cockpit, flipped those switches under fire, and returned home without a parade. Whatever her name really was, they understood now. She wasn't just auditing their systems. She was measuring whether they could be trusted with them. The base's internal terminal room wasn't large, but it had what Martinez needed. He swiped his ID across the reader and waited as the system booted. The black and green interface flickered, then accepted his clearance. Only mid-level. Nothing sensitive, but enough to access internal contractor logs. He typed in her name, Morgan Hayes. The screen showed the basics. Civilian Systems Auditor. Background Washington. Contractor ID verified through the Department of Defense. Assigned clearance level 3. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual? Was how little else there was. No previous audits, no prior assignments, no digital footprint. Just a name, a badge, and a blank trail. He frowned and keyed in another set of queries, this time using backdoor tags for outdated contractor aliases. Still nothing. Then he tried something he hadn't done in years. He tapped into the legacy mission database, the one that pulled archived images from deployment sites, old mission briefs, and ops logs. It was slow, barely indexed, mostly forgotten. But after a few minutes one image appeared. The quality was poor, blurry, captured during pre-flight. A woman stood in front of a B-2 Spirit under low light, The aircraft tail number was partially visible. So was her face. Younger, but unmistakable. Same jawline, same eyes, same way of standing with weight slightly shifted, like she was waiting on orders no one else could hear. The mission code printed in the corner read, Black Dawn. Status classified. Pilot record redacted. Access level Alpha 9. Martinez sat back slowly. His throat felt dry. Black Dawn wasn't just classified. It was one of those names no one said unless they were alone, or drunk, or both. 5 years ago, a B-2 had launched alone into contested airspace and returned hours later. No debriefs, no reports. Everyone involved had gone quiet. Until now. He copied the image and locked the terminal. Back in the hangar, Morgan was inspecting the pilot interface display. She stood near the ladder that led into the B-2 cockpit. Most civilians wouldn't even be allowed this close without escort. But no one stopped her. She reached out, fingers hovering just above the edge of the console. Her hand didn't shake. She wasn't admiring the controls. She was remembering them. The gesture was small, almost reverent. Then she stepped back, jotted something on her tablet, and moved on. Rodriguez watched from the wingtip. He didn't say anything, just leaned against the toolbox, eyes narrowed. He'd worked with pilots for over a decade. You could spot the ones who'd flown from how they moved around aircraft. Most people walked around a B-2. Pilots walked with it. Chen approached from the other side of the bay. You see the way she touched that access rail, he asked. Rodriguez nodded once, like muscle memory, like she'd done it before. Across the floor, Morales had stopped pretending to work. He wasn't the type to speculate, but even he was starting to feel something building, like pressure before a storm. The way people looked at her was changing. Mechanics weren't joking anymore. They were paying attention. Morgan moved toward the tail section, checking the engine housing. She placed her hand against the thermal shield for a moment, like she could read heat through her fingertips. Then she wrote something else down and crossed toward the next bay. Martinez re-entered from the office, walking slowly. He held his tablet against his chest, but his mind was still on the image, on that patch, the patch no one had seen in years. He approached Alvarez first. The chief stood with his arms folded, watching Morgan move between stations. Martinez handed him the tablet. No words. Alvarez stared at the screen for a long time. "That's her," Martinez said. Alvarez nodded once. "I knew it the moment she walked in." "Why is she here now?" Martinez asked. No answer. Just a faint shake of the head. Whatever brought her back. It wasn't audit work. Inside the cockpit. Morgan climbed the ladder halfway, then paused. Her eyes flicked over the layout. Switches. Readouts. Panel flow. She didn't touch anything. But she didn't need to. This wasn't curiosity. It was inventory. Familiarity so ingrained it didn't need effort. She climbed down slowly, steady on each rung. Rodriguez met her at the base of the ladder. "You ever fly?" The question wasn't mocking this time. She met his eyes. Once or twice. Her voice was even. She walked away before he could press further. He turned to Morales. "She flew this bird. I'd bet everything on it." In the office, Martinez and Alvarez looked through the mission tag again. Operation Black Dawn. The name alone carried weight, not just because of what happened, but because of what it erased. After that mission, records vanished, personnel transferred, pilots reassigned or retired without reason, and one of them disappeared entirely. Outside, Morgan passed the fire suppression system and paused, A junior tech working the panel froze as she looked over his shoulder. "You forgot the third redundancy check," she said quietly. The technician turned red, corrected it, and nodded, sheepishly. She didn't linger. Rodriguez stood near Morales, voice low. "So why come back now? She's not here by accident." Morales crossed his arms. "Maybe it's not her choice. Maybe something's about to go wrong, and she's the only one who knows it." Morgan stopped at the far wall. She turned and looked across the length of the hangar, at the B-2, at the people watching her now, not with suspicion, but with a question in their eyes. Who was this woman really, and what was she here to do? Only Morgan knew the answer, and she wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. The base alarm cut through the afternoon like a blade. It was sharp, repeating in intervals. Code Amber. All flight crew report immediately. Personnel dropped what they were doing. Wrenches clattered to the ground. Headsets flew off. Within seconds, the hangar floor turned from calm to ordered chaos. Inside the ops center, red lights blinked across the main tactical display. A situation map pulsed on screen. Intelligence had just confirmed that a ranger platoon was surrounded in a mountain valley, pinned down by enemy armor. Grid reference was over 600 miles out, well beyond the range of rotary wing extraction or fast movers without tanker support. Colonel Barrett, the base commander, leaned over the shoulder of the communications officer. How bad? The reply came fast. 8 armored vehicles moving in. No overhead cover. Rangers are low on ammo. 6 wounded. They need help within the hour, or they're done. Barrett turned. "What do we have ready?" The flight chief answered before he could finish. B-2 Tail 7 is hot, fueled, and prepped. The rest are cold or under maintenance. She's it. Then where's Phillips? Barrett asked. The flight chief's face was pale. Medical bay, collapsed on the pre-flight walk-around. Heat exhaustion. Sir, he's out for at least 48 hours. Backup pilot, Hawaii. Sir, on emergency leave. Closest substitute is out of Whiteman. 4 hours minimum. That's too long, Barrett muttered. The room fell still for a beat. Barrett rubbed his temple. Get me command. See if they can divert another asset. Already tried. Sir, nothing else in range. Weather in the east cut off the route from Aviano. No tankers airborne. Then we don't have an option. We either launch Spirit 7, or let those men die. He didn't say it out loud, but everyone knew what it meant. No pilot. No mission. No mission. No rescue. Sub. Part 4.2. The silent reveal. Across the hangar. Morgan Hayes heard every word. She stood near a diagnostics rack, tablet idle in her hand. The air had changed. Not just urgency. It was the sound of helplessness beginning to take root. She took a step back. Then another. Slowly. Without speaking. She opened the small utility case she had carried all morning. Inside, tucked behind a folded checklist, was a single patch. The colors were faded, the stitching a little worn, but the shape was unmistakable. The spirit talon. She traced it once with her thumb, then tucked it into her sleeve. Not hidden, not displayed. Just enough. Alvarez caught the movement out of the corner of his eye. He froze. His eyes dropped to her arm, locked on the patch, then rose back to her face. The moment stretched. She held his gaze. Without hesitation, he stood straight, then snapped to attention. Barrett turned from the command center door just in time to catch it. What is it? Chief Alvarez didn't blink. Sir, requesting permission to speak. Granted. We have a qualified B-2 pilot in this hangar. Barrett frowned. Where Alvarez nodded toward Morgan, her, Rodriguez, Morales, and 2 other senior mechanics instinctively looked in the same direction. They recognized the insignia now, not from recent memory, from stories, from rumor, from that one time someone said a B-2 came back when it wasn't supposed to. Barrett stepped forward. "Who are you?" Morgan didn't move. "My name is Captain Morgan Hayes, service number AF2374196, formerly attached to the 509th Bomb Wing, 17 operational sorties, over 2,000 hours in the B-2 platform. Last active operation. Mission code Black Dawn." Barrett hesitated. "That mission's sealed." "So was I," she replied. He turned to his aide. "Verify that service number." The aide ran. Less than a minute later, he was back. "Confirmed. Service record exists, but access is flagged. Alpha 9. Barrett looked back at her. "Why are you here classified, sir? You're still certified." "Yes. You know that aircraft better than anyone in this room." The hangar was dead quiet now. Everyone had stopped moving. Even the hum of the fans overhead seemed distant. Barrett looked at Alvarez. "Can she do it?" Alvarez didn't hesitate. "She's the only reason those men have a chance." Barrett didn't speak right away. Then he nodded once. "Get her ready." Morgan didn't salute. She just turned and walked toward the aircraft. The woman no one noticed that morning. Now the only one who could bring 40 Rangers home? Colonel Barrett paced the hangar floor. Radio pressed to his ear. The operations officer at the secure terminal confirmed it again. The identity code, mission history, security level, and flight credentials all checked out. The pilot standing in front of them was listed under a redacted file buried beneath multiple firewalls. The record still existed, but barely. She was once real, then she was erased. Barrett faced Morgan directly. His tone was less formal now. "I need to hear it from you. Why are you listed as inactive?" She didn't look away. After Black Dawn, they classified everything, pilots included. "I was told to disappear, and I did." Barrett considered that, then spoke low. "You're telling me the only qualified pilot for this aircraft is a ghost?" She nodded. "I never stopped flying in my head. I trained hard, kept my logs clean, updated my flight hours off book, just in case. Why now? Because you need someone. And I still remember how." Barrett glanced toward the waiting aircraft. Time was bleeding away. He didn't have options. Just trust. He turned to the aide. "Get her full record decrypted under mission critical override. Notify command we're authorizing launch." "Yes, sir." Barrett stepped forward. "One more thing. If this goes wrong, I won't be able to protect you." Morgan stood straighter. "That's not why I came." His voice softened. "What's your call sign?" She hesitated a second, then said it like she was taking it back from time. "Ghost Talon." Barrett nodded. "Then do what you came to do." Subpart 5.2, gear up and ready. The shift among the crew was instant. Mechanics who had mocked her hours earlier now cleared a path toward the ready room. Rodriguez jogged ahead, calling for backup suits. Morales unlocked the locker where emergency flight gear was kept. It hadn't been touched in months. Alvarez entered behind them and opened the gear crate himself. He pulled out a flight helmet and examined it before handing it over. Still fits regulation. The team had already powered up the B-2's onboard systems. Battery level was full. Preloads were green. Chen stepped forward with a folded flight suit in his hands. It bore no name tape, no wings, just olive fabric and quiet respect. "I didn't know," he said. Morgan looked at him. "Now you do." He held it out. "Should be your size." She didn't take it. "I'll fly in what I came in." She glanced down at her plain, unmarked flight suit. No rank, no identifiers, just cloth. Chen looked confused. That's not regulation. If this fails, I don't want anyone else tied to it. Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Morales. They understood. She wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting them. If this mission ended badly, no one would trace it back through her. Alvarez nodded once. Understood. The crew moved fast now, not just with precision, but purpose. HUD overlays were synced, ECM systems verified, weapons rack armed with smart-guided ordnance already loaded for mid-range strike. Rodriguez handed over the helmet last. The visor still bore the scratched outline of a faded marking. Ghost Talon. He spoke with calm weight. We'll be on comms. All the way. Morgan took the helmet. It slid over her head, like it never stopped fitting. Her voice came over the internal mic. I know. She climbed the ladder one rung at a time. No dramatics, no ceremony. But for everyone watching, it felt like history, returning to its seat. The hangar doors opened slowly, revealing the blue-gray dusk beyond. Ground crew cleared the way, spirits high, heads lifted. The B-2 was ready, and so was she. Morgan's hands moved over the controls with quiet efficiency. Inside the B-2 Spirit cockpit, the soft glow of the displays lit her face in bands of green and amber. Her helmet was locked. HUD active. Flight systems green. She adjusted seat position by instinct, every movement smooth, precise, like muscle memory had never faded. Falcon Ridge Tower came through the headset. Spirit 7. Wind calm. You are cleared for takeoff. Runway 32. Acknowledged, she replied. Spirit 7 rolling. She pushed the throttles forward. The bomber surged into motion, tires humming against the concrete. Acceleration was strong, but steady. Nose lightened. With a small lift on the yoke, the aircraft slipped off the runway like a shadow, wheels tucking clean into the belly. Once airborne, she banked left to begin a long arc, south by southeast. Altitude held at 2,000 feet, too high to be seen, too low for long-range radar. She reached for the terrain-following radar interface and activated the low-profile auto-buffer. The system began scanning the ground ahead, mapping ridges and valleys in real time. Her eyes skimmed the data, but most of it she already sensed. She didn't fly by numbers. She flew by rhythm. 10 minutes in, she dropped to 1,200 feet. The terrain shifted into rolling hills, tree cover thick on both sides. Radar pings from enemy early warning systems pulsed faintly on her threat receiver. None had locked. Yet, she brought the aircraft down another 200 feet, letting the terrain mask her heat signature. Airspeed steady at 420 knots. No comms. Just the hum of system checks and the soft chirp of waypoint updates. Spirit 7 held silent in the sky, a ghost returning to war. Subpart 6.2 Saving the Rangers. The mission clock read 02:13 on her display. A green marker blinked to life. Forward observer on the ground had triggered a beacon. Morgan keyed to encrypted channel 7. Ranger actual. This is Spirit 7. Confirm green smoke. Over. Static cracked. Then a strained voice came through. Spirit 7. Ranger actual. Green smoke confirmed. Targets inbound from southeast. Armor and transport. Minimum cover. We're boxed in. Acknowledged. ETA 1 minute. Keep heads down. She banked right, dropping another 150 feet. The valley opened below her like a scar. On her forward scope, the Ranger's position showed as a small cluster tucked near a tree line. 20 meters behind them, a column of vehicles approached fast. Heat signatures confirmed tracked armor. Morgan armed the payload, 6 smart munitions, GPS enabled, terrain mapped, adjustable fuse delay. She had one pass, no margin for error. She toggled visual overlay, confirming the ridgeline ahead. Then lined up her drop path, Spirit 7, in position, weapons hot, Releasing in 5. Ranger Actual's voice was tight. Copy. We're ready. 4, 3, 2, 1. Weapons away. The internal bays opened and dropped 6 guided bombs in staggered sequence. They soared out ahead, banking downward in synced formation. Morgan pulled back gently, climbing to avoid overshoot, keeping under radar net. Seconds ticked. Then the night lit up. A string of fire blooms erupted in the southeast quadrant. Armor signatures vanished. A low thump rolled through the canyon walls. Morgan's screen confirmed full impact radius. No friendly proximity alarms triggered. Spirit 7. Ranger Actual. Direct hit. Targets neutralized. We're clear. Copy that. Morgan replied. Safe journey home. She turned north, adjusting heading back to base. Hands steady, eyes clear. The sky behind her glowed faint with smoke, but the men on the ground would live to see morning. The cockpit warning tone hit sharp and fast. Radar lock. The threat indicator glowed red in her periphery. Morgan didn't flinch. She reached for the throttle with one hand, pitch control with the other. The radar pulse grew stronger, tracking the bomber from a fixed angle. Found her. No time to climb. Climbing meant exposure. She banked hard left, skimming just above the ridgeline, then dipped behind a line of hills. Terrain following mode disengaged. Manual input, now. Full control. Another ping. They weren't guessing. This was a full target lock, possibly from a mobile radar or fast-track SAM system hidden inside the border. She knew the range, knew the reaction window. 15 seconds if they launched. She dove. Altitude dropped fast. Her breath stayed steady. She leveled off at less than 300 feet. Trees whipped past on either side, their shadows flickering across the canopy. One hand adjusted trim. The other pulled up valley maps. A narrow canyon appeared on the feed. Steep walls, just wide enough for the B-2's wingspan if she hit it square. She didn't hesitate. She lined up the approach, throttled back, and set angle of attack to minimal drag. As she entered the canyon, the radar lock intensified for a second, then went dead. She cut main power. The cockpit dimmed to standby, engines silent, gliding on momentum alone. Environmental systems dropped to low reserve, all external lights off. No ping, no echo. She was gone from the sky. The aircraft coasted like a glider, tucked deep in the fold of the canyon. The rock faces on either side reflected nothing, just dark walls and silence. She held the line steady with subtle pressure on the yoke. In that space, there was no time, only instinct. No sound except the muted hum of standby screens and her own breathing inside the helmet. She counted. 15 seconds. 20. 30. No new lock. No alerts. It had worked. She gently pushed power back online. The systems buzzed alive. Flight control resumed full responsiveness. She climbed out of the canyon with slow throttle, staying under the radar shelf, sliding behind the last range of hills. Morgan re-engaged navigation. Course locked. Home base in range. Spirit 7 to Falcon Ridge. Mission complete. Returning to base. Threat evaded. Copy that. Spirit 7. Tower has you on scope. Welcome home. She leaned back into the seat. Not with relief. With control. Everything had gone wrong and still. She was bringing this bird home. She looked out over the dark landscape. No flares in the distance. No enemy signals. Just her, the sky, and 40 Rangers safe on the ground. The B-2 climbed slowly, returning to altitude. Inside the hangar back at Falcon Ridge, screens lit up as the aircraft reappeared on final approach. The mission team leaned in as her transponder came back online. Flight Chief Morales exhaled. She made it. The ghost Talon had vanished again, but this time, by choice. The B-2 touched down at 0446. Its wheels met the runway with barely a whisper. Flaps adjusted. Brakes engaged in a smooth deceleration. The bomber coasted toward the hangar as the first hints of dawn broke along the horizon. Inside Hangar 7, the ground crew stood in formation. No one had told them to do it. No protocol required it. But they stood just the same, side by side. Mechanics, chiefs, technicians, clean uniforms, eyes forward. The massive hangar doors opened as the aircraft rolled in. It came to a full stop at the same spot it had left hours earlier. Engines wound down. The vibration faded. Silence returned. Morgan opened the canopy. She didn't stand for effect. No theatrics. She climbed down the ladder like it was any other sortie. Helmet tucked under one arm. Boots hitting the floor with measured weight. As she stepped away from the aircraft, no one moved. Not even Alvarez. She walked straight to the flight chief and handed him her tablet. Flight logs complete. I logged a minor vibration in engine 2. Starts above 30,000 feet. You'll want a level 3 check. He took it without a word. She didn't offer more. No summary. No dramatic statement. Rodriguez approached with a folded jacket, the official one, with her name and rank restored. She looked at it, then back at him. Keep it in the locker. He gave a small nod. Outside the hangar, a growing hum signaled the arrival of media vans. Cameras, lights, questions. Morgan glanced toward the side door. Morales stepped into her path. Words already spreading. The commander will want to debrief. She paused. I've already debriefed. She started walking again. Alvarez followed. You'll be mentioned in reports. That's fine, she said. Just leave me out of the photo. He stopped as she kept going. At the edge of the tarmac, she looked back once. The aircraft stood quiet, its surface already cooling in the morning air. Behind it, her team no longer skeptical, no longer curious, watched with quiet understanding. Morgan nodded once, a silent farewell. Then she disappeared through the side gate. The cameras never saw her, but the mission that was finished, and 40 American soldiers would go home because of it. The television above the diner booth flickered between feeds. Local news, national updates, military analysts trying to piece together what had happened overnight. Footage showed a B-2 bomber landing at Falcon Ridge, a crew standing at attention, a rescue confirmed, 40 Rangers saved, but no pilot named. Morgan sat with her coffee, hands wrapped around the cup for warmth more than habit. She'd been driving for hours. No escort, no press, just a dusty car, the clothes she wore on mission, and silence. The waitress refilled her mug without asking. She looked up at the screen. Some pilot pulled off a miracle last night. She said, got those guys out when no one else could. Real hero, whoever it was. Morgan gave a faint smile. Just someone doing their job. The waitress smiled back. Well, the world needs more like that. The news anchor continued. Speculation pointed to a classified operator. Pentagon officials declined comment. No flight name given. No pilot photo released. Morgan stirred her coffee once. She didn't need to see it. She already knew how the story ended, and that was enough. Sub Part 9.2 Legacy back at Falcon Ridge. A secure server accepted a data packet marked Priority 1. Inside it was a line of text that hadn't been updated in 5 years. Status inactive, security level Alpha 9. Operator Hayes, Morgan L. A new entry appeared below it. Status reactivated. Mission qualified, authorized for special operations. Stealth platforms. As needed. The record sealed again. Access restricted. But the door, once closed, was now unlocked. On a quiet highway outside the base perimeter, Morgan drove west. No destination marked. Just a route she knew by feel. Fields stretched out on either side. No sound but wind and the engine. In the back seat, folded in her bag, was the patch. Still faded. Still hers. The call might come again. Somewhere. Someday. Another operation no one could know about. Another set of lives depending on someone who didn't need credit. She wasn't chasing medals. She was answering the same call she'd always known. One only a few could hear, and even fewer could answer.